many of you know that we did a series of webinars and Zoom meetings that took the place of the workshops for annual gathering, since um, our annual gathering was virtual. And thank you if you participated in that. As we were reviewing that with the executive committee, I think someone said, you know what would be really helpful is kind of a Zoom 101. And why don't you ask Katy Valentine if she would do it? And so I did, and Katy said yes, and we set a date and a time, and here we all are. So with that, I'll give you Katy Valentine, and you can catch us up on what you're doing other than this.
Right. This is a lot of it. So thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. So welcome everyone. I think I know about 3/4 people here. So I think we'll do a little introductions kind of later on in the hour. So those of you who are sleepy can get what you need and then get to bed. And then we'll have some tutorial and conversational time in the second half. So I have about 90 minutes planned, and we may use it the whole time, we may not. If there is a specific question that you have, do put it into the chat box. So here is Zoom 101. Let me orient everyone to what we're doing. I know many of you have been, this is like your 5,000th Zoom since March, and for some of you may not be as familiar. So we have the chat function. So if you click chat at the bottom of your screen, and if you're on a mobile device, you'll kind of have to swipe a little bit until you find it. So the chat function is here. So you can feel free to use that throughout to ask questions, make comments, exclaim. I would encourage you, as you're holding your own Zoom meetings, to clarify how you want people to use the chat. Don't assume that they will know how to do that. So you'll need to clarify that. I have extraordinary power where I can mute all of you, which I'm going to do now. But you can unmute yourself. So how about if everyone practices that? You should be able to hover, if you're on a computer, you should be able to hover over yourself and the three little dots at the top right of your picture and click mute or unmute. And again, if you're on a mobile device, this is where it's a little tricky. If you're on a mobile device, you just have to kind of figure it out because they're all very different. It looks like most people are able to do that. Is there anyone who's not able to mute or unmute themselves? Wave your hand furiously, if so. Okay, perfect. So that's just a little trick that you can use to kind of engage people. You can also rename yourselves. Did you all know that? If you click those same the three dots at the top of your picture, you can click rename. So if you please keep your name so I can see who you are, but I'll put where I'm from, where I currently reside. There. So that's kind of fun to do. And sometimes people come in with a spouse's name because they're the last person to use Zoom. And so it's helpful just to be able to rename yourself. So I am Katy Valentine. I'm an ordained minister here in the CCNC-N region, although I know we have people from, I think, a little bit of an ecumenical and interregional, intercountry crowd here. And so that's wonderful. I love that. And so we will be doing some Zoom 101 and maybe some Zoom maybe 102 material here as well as we get going. So I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Want to make sure you can all see this okay? Can you see what's on my screen? And you can still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to minimize you all, which is always a little scary. You're not minimal in my heart. It's just to make this go full screen. All right, actually I can still see you, but I don't, for the recording purposes, I need to minimize you all. So if you do have a question midway through, I will stop periodically, but if you do have a question or something urgent, just unmute yourself and ask. It's no problem. All right, so we're going to be talking about Zoom 101 and creating online community today. This is the year of Zooming. If 2020 has taught us nothing else, it's that we should have bought stock in Zoom in 2019. And I've actually been using Zoom for at least 6-7 years since its early days. I've been through almost every iteration of Zoom. And what we will do today is we will talk about technicalities of Zoom. We'll talk about creating online community through Zoom or other online Zooming picture, audio, visual material. I'll introduce you to some intermediate features, and then we'll have a tutorial time at the end where you can practice. So I can make you a co-host so you can practice some of the technical features and some Q&A and practice them as well. By the end of this session, you should have more confidence in setting up your own Zoom worship meetings and groups. You should be able to run your meetings with some reduced anxiety and maybe even have fun. The goal for me is always when I forget I'm on Zoom and I'm just there, I'm just able to be. And taking care of some of the technical details definitely helps in that with you, with people that you're leading, with your various communities. Get the most out of each Zoom meeting, whether it's a meeting, whether it's worship, whether it's fellowship, whatever it is you may be doing through your church, so that the focus is on the content, but not on the tech. And get your Zoom standard operating procedures up and running so you do not have to recreate the wheel every single time that you have a meeting. It'll be a little more like butter by the end of this. And let me invite everyone to take a deep breath, although I know we're many months into the pandemic, things are always changing. And I've been running online communities for several years now, both in individual coaching that I do. I have a lot of Facebook groups, and I'm on Zoom a lot. I was on Zoom a lot before the pandemic. I'm on Zoom more now. But for me, I'll offer this to you, whether it's in the form of a scroll, whether it's in the form of a codex or a book, or whether it's on an iPhone or a computer, it's the same gospel message. The technology has been changing for 2,000 years, and it will continue to change. Zoom is just the latest, and here we are. Whether we get to church in a buggy or in a car, or whether it's online Zoom with the click of a button, it is still church. We are still meeting to be church together. And our job is to be present to the contemporary age and be responsive with the love of Jesus Christ. So welcome to Zoom. That's what it looks like this year. I know this is all things you know, but it is so easy to forget when we're knee deep in the middle of this third wave of the pandemic. So thank you for being here, for giving this gift to yourself of a little support that I can offer. Excuse me, I'm also getting over a cold, so I'm going to have to pause for water quite a lot. And just a little bit for your consideration as you're beginning to think maybe outside the box. As I think it's become clear, we're going to be using this technology at least on and off for a couple of years. Zoom or any other online platform, whether it's Facebook Live, whether it's Ecamm, whether it's any other thing that you choose to use. This gives increased accessibility to your homebound people. This has been a huge benefit and a huge boon. So even when we do worship in person, again, I would encourage everyone not to make that exclusive. This has been a real gift to people who can't get out and about on Sunday mornings. It is also allows for participation that works for introverts, and we'll talk about how to make that possible. It gives visitors a chance to check you out. So people who would never dare walk through the doors of your church just because of trauma, intimidation, a sort of fear of being overgreeted. I mean, who knows what keeps people from walking through the doors? They can peek in on you online, and that's pretty cool if we can make that accessible for people. And it allows you to literally connect globally. It's been really fun to see clergy colleagues say hi to people from across the country who might not be able to, grace their doors on a Sunday morning. But through the power of technology, they can actually be there and connect. So let's go through technicalities first. Setting up your Zoom account. I'm assuming many of you probably have this done, but just in case you don't, or you've been using someone else's account, go to zoom.us. It's an app that you download or you can use in a browser. It's $12.99 a month if you pay annually. It's $14.99 a month if you pay month to month. Either way is fine. It's a difference of $24 over the course of a year. The benefit of having an account is that it allows you more than 40 minutes of meeting time. You can use Zoom for free, but only up to 40 minutes, and then it will kick you off. So this is a benefit of having the paid account. And if you are on staff at a church or even not, I would encourage you to use a generic church email address for ease so that multiple people can access the account. Let's talk about creating great sound. And then I'm going to show you a video on how to get some of the other nuts and bolts set up. So this is some 101 information. If possible, be plugged directly into your modem when you're on Zoom. I am right now, I have my Wi-Fi turned off. I'm plugged directly into a modem. Like I said, I'm on Zoom a lot, but as soon as I unplug and I'm on Wi-Fi, there's problems. Even if your Wi-Fi is really great, if you can be plugged directly in, do so. Sound is more important than picture. Sound is way, way, way more important than picture. Sound is the most important thing you can do for your listeners. Occasionally, even being plugged in, I'll have to turn my video off just to create more bandwidth. If no one can hear you or others, they will check out, they'll turn off, they'll get frustrated, you'll get frustrated emails from people. So sound is much more important than video, although video is important, but sound is the most important thing you can do. I use a USB microphone. I have a $100 Blue Yeti. I'll show it to you in a moment. And because I podcast, I also have a few other little fancy bits of equipment, but you can just plug in something. You can plug in a $7.99 set of headphones from your local Circle K, as long as it has a little microphone in it, and it will probably be good enough. But that is, if you're leading especially, I would recommend having at least a little pair of headphones. Again, very affordable, and you can plug them directly into your computer. Headphones with a microphone are also a good option. Let's talk about creating some great video. Again, just some one-on-one information. At your desk is okay on Zoom, whether it's in worship, whether it's a meeting, and in fact, it's more than okay. So one of the advantages of Zoom is that it has the opportunity to create some intimacy. And so we need to do that safely, honor that intimacy. But this, at your desk, even leading worship is actually, for some people, preferable. This doesn't mean that you can't be in your sanctuary. You can use Zoom in the sanctuary, kind of leading from up there, but you don't have to be. So what this does is actually gives you options. I would definitely sacrifice the look of your space for being plugged directly into a modem. I have had Zoom meetings in random corners of random hotel rooms at a sideways angle in order to be plugged directly into a modem. It can make a big difference. If people are complaining about lag, or if you are having lag, this will most likely solve the problem. When you do have the luxury of creating great space, aim for having your face fill up most of the screen. You can kind of see mine. You don't want to create a whole ceiling like above you. Just, kind of centered into the middle of the screen. And as much as you can, if you have the luxury, create a pleasant background. I have my angel over there. I have a painting actually by Quan up above my right shoulder. Be careful. This one I think is the what's getting more challenging at this point in the pandemic. I think it's important for us not to slip into our living room demeanor. If you're leading, remain the leader. It's easy to sort of push mute and run into the living room. I mean, we all have to do what we have to do. I realize that when we are at home, but I think it's important to sort of maintain that you are still in an environment, for instance, of worship, or as a board chair, or as a clergy. So when you are in leadership roles, it's just we have to remember that a little bit more than, for instance, when we're in the front of a church. So I want to show you this tutorial. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing just for a minute. Oh. There we go. Let me see if there's comments, questions. Too elementary. Do we need to move straight on to the intermediate 102 material? All right, let me respond to any questions in the screen. Okay. So Carl, I will send out the information. Yes, I can send you we can send out the PowerPoint presentation. So there's a question, do the USB microphone or headsets are better than the mic on your laptop? They are. They are better than the microphone on your laptop. Let me switch mine and you can see the difference, okay? Okay, this is me on my Yeti mic. And this will be, I'm switching right now. This is me speaking just into my computer mic. Can you hear the difference? Mm-hmm. Okay, which one was better?
Huge difference.
Huge difference, okay. So I'm gonna switch back. Now this is a fairly fancy mic, but it's not that fancy. I mean, it's from Best Buy. I got it. I just went to Best Buy a couple years ago. Googled which one was best, bought that one. So, but even if I plug these, can you hear me? So is this slightly better than the switch I made before? Okay, so you can hear the difference. So there's 3 different microphones that you can hear just with me. Let me plug it back in. So even the just iPhone headsets are pretty good, and they make a big difference for people who are listening to you. I think, Paula, I think you had a question about screen share. Can you clarify your question?
You went very quickly over how you got it up onto your screen and got it into to fill the screen. Can you just back up and say how you did that? Because that's one of the questions that I have when I try to screen share.
I'm going to give you a link to someone who has a great it's a little more advanced information than we're doing here, but it's called No More Bad Zoom by someone named Robbie Samuels. And I'm going to give you a link. He's got like a 12-minute really helpful video on some more advanced features as well. But you can, in your settings, you can make it so that like when you share your screen, it either goes into full screen or doesn't for yourself and the viewers. And you can choose if you want to have a gallery view of participants next to it or not, but you have to do that before the meeting begins. Yep. And so, all right, so we're ready. So what I have next is about an 8-minute video on getting set up with some of the technicalities. Again, for some of you, it may be review, but then after that, we'll talk about creating community. All right. And this is very important. You can't see that I'm doing this, but when I click share screen, I'm clicking a little button that says share computer sound. Can you all still hear me? Okay, so you can hear me and the computer.
Yes, because I was going to ask you about the sharing the sound. I couldn't do that before. I couldn't figure it out.
Oh no. Okay, so I'll have a little screenshot that'll show you how, and then we'll make sure it works for you. Well, in the practicum.
Okay.
Yeah, so remind me so we can make sure that that works.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everyone, here we go. Once you set up your Zoom account, your screen, once you open the app, will look something like this. I'm going to show you a few basic technicalities of how to get your Zoom account set up, and I'm going to suggest that you create one meeting link that you use over and over and over. For instance, Sunday morning worship or Wednesday night Bible study, whatever it may be, so you don't have to try to copy and paste links all the time to give out to people. You just have one that you use over and over and over again for your church. You can create as many of these as you need if you find that you need them. So here you'll create schedule, and you're going to create some innovative name. So let's say, First Good Church of City, and you could say worship, or you could say, community link to make it pretty generic. If this is one that you're going to use over and over and over, you're going to click recurring meeting, and then you don't have to set the time and date. Let's suppose that it wasn't a recurring meeting and you did want to have one that's specifically for a certain date and time, kind of like the meeting that we're in now. You could do that as well, but then it's not one that you would reuse over and over. In that case, you would want to give it a very specific name. But let's suppose that this is a recurring meeting. I would generate the meeting ID automatically. Your other option is to make it a personal meeting ID. And if you do this, I would make your personal meeting ID the phone number of your church. But let's say it's going to generate it automatically. Do click passcode for security reasons, and do click waiting room. You're going to want to have both of these. Video is your personal preference. This just means that the camera will automatically come on when you start the meeting if you're the host, and you can choose if you want it to come automatically on and off for the participants. I tend to say on, but it doesn't matter. They can change that if they want whenever they're entering the meeting. For audio, do click telephone and computer audio. You want people to be able to do both. This dial-in from the United States will be automatic, so just leave that as it is. And I usually like to have this iCal checked so people can put the meeting on their calendar if they want. Of course, without a specific date and time, it won't really pop up on their calendar anyway, but it's a good idea just to have this as a standard practice. Let's click Advanced Meetings. Here you can click Enable Join Before Host. I personally do not check this because I want to know who's in the meeting, how many people are there, just in case you have someone toxic that was coming in. You want to be able to control that a little bit. Do click Mute Participants on entry. This will save you a lot of time later on. I do not click Only Authenticated Users. You do want visitors to be able to come and join. Up here, you've generated a passcode, you've generated a waiting room. That's enough security for most of you. And then if you want to automatically record your meeting, then go ahead and click this. I think it's a good idea if it's a link specifically for worship, so it just starts to record. You don't have to worry about it. But if you want to be able to control when it begins to record and do that at a specific time, you don't have to click this. And then you just click Save. All right, it's trying to add this to my calendar. I'm not going to tell it not to. Okay. Then when it's time to start the meeting, you go over to here to Meetings. And you'll click First Good Church of Community. So when this pops up, this is just me as the host. I'm going to click Join with Computer Audio. The other option you have is to use a phone to call in. I occasionally have to do this if my Wi-Fi is acting up or something like that, but I prefer just to use computer audio. And you can always click this if you want to make it automatic. Join with computer audio. Okay, so suppose I was ready to, begin worship. I would click Start Video. Here I am. And I'm the only one in the meeting right now. But if I click Participants over here, a little area up here called Waiting Room would appear, and it would show all the people in the waiting room. And then when it's time to let them in, you'll see a little button that says, let everyone from the waiting room into the meeting, and then you can do that. Then what I encourage you to do, and with the security settings that I've given you, this will actually be pretty easy. What you want to do is come over here and unclick Waiting Room. And that way you don't have to keep your eye on people who are waiting to get into the meeting. But you can always re-enable that if you want to. And I'll go over reasons why you would or wouldn't want to do that later on, and we can talk about that more in the Q&A. Over here, just some other options. You want to mute participants on entry. We had that set up already. You do want to allow participants to unmute themselves. So if someone wants to speak up to ask a question, you can let them. I highly, and this is maybe the most important tip of the whole night, I highly recommend that you unclick Play Sound when someone joins or leaves. There's a loud chime, and it personally makes me want to leave every Zoom meeting that I'm in if that's on, especially if it's one with dozens of people, because people are coming in late, and every time they come in, it sounds like a doorbell, beep, 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 and it makes me want to hurl my computer out of a window. And mostly, you really don't need that. So I would highly encourage everyone to unclick this. Allow participants to rename themselves. That's fine. Sometimes someone comes in and it has their spouse's name, or their child has renamed their computer something strange, so let them rename themselves. You can always lock the meeting if you need to. For instance, if it's a meeting of only your board and all 5 people are there, all 10 people are there, and you don't want anyone else into the meeting, you can lock the meeting, so that means no one else can come in. Most of us won't really have to do that. All right, so that's your basics on how to get around once you're in the meeting. Let me show you just a few other tricks for getting set up. You will have a chat feature over here. Participants can chat, and you can have someone monitor that. You can monitor that. Here is where you click record. So if I want to record this meeting, I usually record it to my computer, and then I can upload it, I can repurpose it, I can edit it as needed. And so this is, if you don't have it recording automatically, then you're going to want to click this whenever it's time to record. And if you want to get fancy, you can also go live on Facebook through Zoom, and I can show you how to set that up at a later time. That's a little bit more advanced feature. The other feature I think many of you will want to use is breakout rooms. I have this set up on my computer automatically. I'll show you how to do that shortly. But here you could click breakout rooms. It will allow me, let's say I wanted to make 5 breakout rooms if I had 20 people, and I could assign automatically. So Zoom would automatically funnel people into breakout rooms. You might want to do this for fellowship, or if you're having small group discussion, or if you wanted to be very choosy about who was in what room, you could assign them manually, and it's pretty intuitive once that pops up how to do that. And you could let participants choose room. If you were having topic A, B, C, or D, then they could go into the one of their choice. And so as soon as you hit create, everyone will get a pop-up asking them to join their selected breakout room. When it's time to end the meeting, you just come over here to end and click that. So that's your basics on the very basic settings that you need to get set up. So we're going to conclude part 1. I'll ask for any questions, and then we'll move on to part 2. Okay, so that was some nuts and bolts on just how to get set up for a generic meeting, and we'll hopefully take the stress out of and lower your anxiety so that you're not focused on the technicalities. Like once that's all set up in place and once you get used to it, it really will flow pretty smoothly. Maybe 1 or 2 tricks in there if you've been hosting Zoom meetings for a long time that may be new to you. So let me pause, comments, questions, insights, ahas, anything.
Just waving, Katie?
You can, I will wave back, Carl. Hey.
No, I meant, you want us to put them in the chat, or you just want to?
You can just speak it out loud if you want.
Hey, Katie, I have a question regarding the cloud recording.
Sure.
What happens if the space, my cloud space is filled up? It just
I never use cloud recording for that exact reason, because I don't want to pay for it through Zoom. So I always record to my computer, although I have recorded I have recorded to the cloud. I will double check. Let me write this down so I can get back to you. 1 second. I think that you can actually still download it to your computer and edit it from there. But almost everything that I download, I need to edit before I make it visible to the public or to private groups or whatever. So I will double check on that. But if you have the space on your computer, I would just download it locally.
Yeah, because I believe we are using one account from our church, and I believe there's record automatically is enabled, and it records to cloud. And I noticed the last meeting I had on Sunday, our board meeting, I was actually unable to turn on and off recording. So I'm not sure if that was the issue because it was set to automatically record to cloud, or what's going on.
Yeah, it may be. And I would definitely recommend, as soon as something's recorded to cloud, download it, get it onto your computer, and then make space for the next one. So that makes sense. If you have multiple users in multiple households, it doesn't make sense for them to download it to their computer, because then you have to wait for them to get it to you. And then, you know,
Right.
So it makes sense to have it automatically record to the cloud in that case. And then I would just, as soon as you can, get it off the cloud.
All right, thank you.
Off the cloud and into your pretty little hard drive.
Yes.
Yes. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. Muriel.
About recording to the cloud, do you select where in the cloud, or does it, I mean, how does it know where to do it in the cloud?
No, it's doing it. It's recording it to like a Zoom account, like it's part of your Zoom account that you get some limited space. And so then you can, what it will do is say, do you want to just like share this Zoom link? And it will give you a specialized link for replay, and people will watch it streaming. So I prefer to this is personal preference, I think, but I prefer to just download it to my computer. I upload it to my Dropbox. I have a Dropbox account. If you Dropbox, iCloud, whatever sharing account you have, or if you wanted to upload it to YouTube, and then you can share that link.
Because what I have is it's recorded on my computer, and then someone else edits it for YouTube. And so on Sunday, what happens is I started processing or whatever it does to it, and it takes a long time. So I go off to eat lunch and I forget about it. And and then the computer has frozen because it's been so long since anyway, and sometimes it takes me 9 hours to get it to the person
Ooh,
because I get distracted.
right.
And so I was wondering about the cloud, if that would be a better solution.
It's not a better solution for for editing purposes.
Okay, then we'll keep doing it the way we're
Yeah,
doing.
but I would say just keep doing whatever. If it's working, if it's not broke, I wouldn't fix that. But I can show you my system for creating checklist if you want. But yeah, but I know it's a Sunday, so yeah, enjoy, live your life too. So let me just look into the chat here. Okay, so Paula said she records to the cloud and then downloads it to a flash drive. That works too, and then delete it from the cloud so you have it somewhere else. This is correct. If you just save the audio, if you don't need the video but only the audio takes up virtually very little space as well. Another thing you can do this, I would not recommend this if you're recording a worship with dozens of people or hundreds of people or anything like that. But for most of my meetings, I download. I have the settings online set up so that each person has their own audio track. So for instance, if I'm recording a podcast and right now I'd want to cover up my coughs on the podcast when my colleagues are speaking, when I import that into an audio editing, I'm on a track, everyone else is on their own track. So you can kind of selectively mute people as needed. That's only if you're getting super fancy. So you wouldn't need to do that for worship, but suppose you're recording, if you're pre-recording worship on Zoom or something like that, that might be a handy feature to keep in mind as well. So I can show you how to set up the settings for that. So let me just pause. Any more questions, comments that are coming up? Carl.
Are you going over host and co-host?
Yes, we can do that.
I mean,
In the practicum, I'm going to make anyone who wants a co-host so you can practice anything you need to practice. So that's a fun feature of Zoom. I could make any of you a co-host with me. In fact, so Jim and I were on here earlier, and he made me a co-host and then a host of the meeting, and so that gives that person power to mute and unmute and pin and rearrange things like that.
I do have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The co-hosting, okay, someone else starts it, passes it over to me, and then I host for the whole rest of it. But if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying you can actually have two people who have some control at the same time, not that it's how.
Yeah, I could make all of you co-host right now if I wanted. We could all co-host together. So you can have as many co-hosts as you want. So what a co-host can do, they can, I don't think they can mute and unmute people. I was trying to find the answer to this. I've never had actual success with that.
you can, Katie.
Can you?
I've been a co-host and you can.
Oh, that's nice. So there must be some hidden setting on this, which was frustrating in a big meeting where I needed my co-host to be able to mute, and so for some reason she couldn't. So they can mute and unmute. They can also pin a video. So let me show you that. Okay, did my face just blow up on all of your screens? Oh, bizarre. For some of you, it didn't. So I pinned my video. So a co-host can pin a video. So when you're recording, like right now in this recording, the only thing that viewers will see afterwards is me. I'm going to unpin that now. I don't need to be the star of the show at all.
I have it on speaker view.
Okay, so you have your own speaker view. So for recording purposes, then a little lesson. Suppose that I'm recording right now in gallery view, which means we all look like the Brady Bunch. That's how all the recording will appear when you receive the recording. But suppose that someone's giving a sermon or someone's doing a solo or something like that. You could pin that person. So I would hover above the three little dots above them, and then I would click pin. And then that's the only person that would appear. And then as soon as the sermon's done or the solo's over, you would click unpin, and it would record the screen as it appears in front of your, on your screen. And so it's one of those things you just have to practice as you'll be able to see it in the replay. Mhm.
Our services, we have everything translated, so everything is in both Spanish and English. Is there a way to do something where it's pinned so it will only go to those two people, or is it only one you can pin?
Yeah. So if you're doing that a lot in a service, I would recommend having one person that's the only thing that they do. Have one tech person and just have them do that, that and only that can be really helpful.
Would you be able to explain a little bit more about the different translation? How that's done actually, if you have 2 or 3 different languages?
Yeah, Muriel, how do you know the technicalities of how your church is doing that?
We just have two, well, depending on, like, we had Cassie, whatever her last name is. But anyway, and she's bilingual, so she just, went back and forth between the languages. Otherwise, we have a person who, generally it's a person who is Spanish speaking, who the speaker does their part, and then she has been given a copy of it before so she can have translation prepared, and they just go back and forth. So when you're on speaker view, it just automatically goes between the two, and the only thing is to make sure that you don't have somebody who's got their that's not muted, who suddenly appears on the screen, with their dog or something.
Right. And I couldn't tell who it was. It passed me by. Who was asking the question about translation?
And that was me, Lawrence.
Lawrence, thank you. If you want to have it, do you have a question as well about how to do translation in real time?
Yeah, actually that was because October 18th, the PSWR, we had our original gathering via Zoom. And down on the bottom, we actually had a list of languages you can select the ones you want to listen to. So I just wondered, if that's easy to do, or if you have to have folk dial in at a certain
I think you would have to have people dial in to a certain number. I know we did this for the Wild Women of the West.
Mhm.
So I will double check to see what made it most seamless and get back to you on that, because that's a great
Thank you.
question. Yeah, you bet. So what would be, we have one of two directions we can go. We have time for both. I just want to be the best steward of your time. What would be most helpful next? Would it be to talk about kind of creating community online? The technicalities are a big part of that. But would that be a helpful conversation to have, or are you all raring to go and just like, give me more tech? What is floating your boat the most right now?
I myself am interested in creating community.
Okay.
I'll go along with Lawrence.
Hey, Carl,
Okay,
how you
Lawrence.
doing?
I saw some other head nods, so I'll take that as a cue, and we'll still have time for the other technicalities as well. So I'm eating cough drops while we're doing this, so thank you for your patience with that. So I will screen share, but it's just one slide. And okay, as I'm getting that set up, I also want to encourage everyone to give yourselves grace with community. Like I said, I've been running Zoom calls, meetings for years. And at the Wild Women of the West, I suddenly lost all ability to tell participants how to raise their hand in the chat. I mean, I was just like, and my brain completely froze. I like couldn't manage it. I could not remember how to do it. And you know what? Like, it was fine. The world, just a little grace goes a long ways. And be sure to ask people for that in Zoom meetings. You can even just tell them, hey, I'm new at this and we're learning as we go. Please be patient. There's going to be a little lag. As long as they know it's half of this is just managing people's expectations as you go. So just set those up as you go along. All right. Okay. I want to see all of you right now too. Let me see if I can make that happen. Can you all still hear me okay? Here we go. Was that a thumbs up to hearing? I didn't actually have you. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to kind of keep the nuts and bolts pictured so we can all see each other at the same time. But for creating community online, this is where I feel like I have, where I can help people excel, because this is part of what I do. I do group coaching for people a lot. I have a group that I meet with every single Monday night. We create community online. They become, these are people who don't know each other. They don't have the benefit of knowing each other through a region or a church or any kind of affiliation. So they become a community in the time we spend together online. I think a huge part of this is really, if you are leading a Zoom meeting and wanting to create community, is to set aside your personal time and space, the same that you would before you started leading a church service or before you said the prayer in a meeting, that you get to your space and you cultivate your space, like here at my desk. So here at my desk right now, in addition to cough drops and glasses of water, I have a candle lit. I've created some space for myself. So I try not to sort of crash into my chair and just begin, but to come and to prepare. So that preparation, centering yourself, is the same on Zoom as it is not on Zoom. The second thing is to really make sure everyone is comfortable with the technology. It's, I think even if you're 100% sure that everyone that's there has been there before, I think it's worthwhile to just state, this is how we use the chat. Set your expectations for them, for participants. And ultimately, that is a gift to participants because they're not having to try to guess, right? If they're sitting in a pew, they most likely know what the expectations are for them. But apart from that, they may not. And it's easy to forget, because we've all been in Zoom meetings where someone forgets that they're not on mute and they're like, you hear a casual conversation going on in a household that you probably shouldn't hear, right? So have grace for that. We can, it's not the end of the world, but also remind people, hey, we're in church. You're on your computer, you're on Zoom, but you are in church. So I think we have to tell people what the expectations are. And that way, if someone makes a faux pas, a little gaffe, no problem actually. But that way people know what they know what the expectations are, and they can kind of live into that a little bit. And that does help create community. And so I think this is also point 3 here, kind of cultivating our atmosphere with intention. Anything that happens on Zoom has to be planned out, probably more than if we were in person. And the little subtle cues that we're used to relying on in person are not there necessarily in the same way on Zoom. So I think cultivating intention, and things that you might normally say with a gesture, you have to say out loud. And so don't be afraid to over-explain. And so you know how it is when you go to a new church for the first time and you're like, how are they going to take communion? Are they going to pass it? Is it intinction? I don't know. And you spend your whole time worried about how the ritual is going to be done, that you miss the moment. The same thing can happen on Zoom. So I think creating community, just way over explain what is going to happen. And especially if something is changing, if you're changing a format, just over explain that, and you'll watch people's anxiety decrease. And then they're able to engage in the moment because they're not worried about the mechanics. And people will also be worried about you if you're leading the Zoom, if you're doing the tech stuff. And so reassure them that you're okay. When I just all of a sudden couldn't tell people how to raise their hands and the participant button, I was a little mortified, right? Because I teach this stuff. I think Tony gave me a reassuring, like, it's okay. Like, this is how you do it, right? But people were worried about taking care of me rather than being in the moment, right? So just reassure them that you're actually okay with that. Point 4, I think we've already gone over this. Tell people exactly what you're doing and help them create the community. But just putting people's minds at rest, because this is all new and people I think we've gotten used to a new normal, but there's always a new normal that we're experiencing with new anxieties. With 2020, a month and a half left, but I'm not sure that the artificial date of 2021 is going to make some of these anxieties go away. A huge part, I think point 5 is a huge one. And this is like, if you can gold star, red circle this, do it. Automate emails with information and the benefits of showing up. Many of you, I should not say most, many of you most likely use Gmail or something like it, where you can pre-schedule emails, or your church may have some kind of email server that you can pre-schedule emails on. And in these emails, if you send out an email on a Monday that says, hey, on Sunday, we're worshiping via Zoom at whatever time, see you there. No one's going to be able to find that email on Sunday morning. But you can pre-schedule prefabbed emails that you literally copy and paste week to week, change a sentence or two, and schedule to send out. So remind people, we are beginning, this meeting is at this time, fellowship is at this time, worship is at this time. Give them make it absolutely easy for them to click on a link and show up without having to look anything up. Give them the meeting ID, give them any passwords, and let them know you want them there. Tell them what is the benefit of them showing up. And I think this is part of what I like to help churches do with their copywriting. But what's, at worship will be, you can tell them what the theme is, what you're going to be doing. But, we hope by the end of worship, you will feel more at peace and ready to go out into the world. How are they going to feel at the end of this worship service that you've designed? Or how is your board meeting going to move the needle? What's the service? What's the mission that your church is engaging in that they need to know about? And so just creating an email template for yourself, dear first name, we're so excited to gather and worship. Tell them a little bit about what's going on. We want to, all you have to do is click here. If you have any trouble, keep the meeting ID and the password handy. And if you're using the recurring link, you don't have to change that meeting to meeting. You can just stay the same. The second half of the email can be the same every single time. So that anything that you can automate, do it, but people have to receive reminders. And if I have to search back through my inbox too many times, there's a high chance it's been deleted already. So an email reminder for me 5 minutes before a meeting is a lifesaver. But you don't have to send it out 5 minutes before the meeting. You've scheduled it on Monday and it automatically goes out 5 minutes before the meeting on Sunday or before worship on Sunday. This is how you create community, because you're in people's inboxes, literally. They're aware, you're explaining to them what's going on. You're keeping them in the loop in a way that is harder right now in pandemic. So as much as you can to keep people in the loop, keep showing up, show up in their inboxes, show up on their Facebook feeds, but you can pre-schedule all of this. You don't have to be there without any boundaries around it, right? You're creating your own boundaries in your own container. The last way that I would suggest is to create midweek gatherings for people to connect in a mixture of either structured, that should say unstructured, not unstructured. I don't know what an unstructured opportunity would be, but an unstructured opportunity for fellowship time, for Bible study, for whatever it is that your community does. A midweek gathering, even just a midweek check-in can be really helpful. And maybe you'll have a topic, this week we want to talk about X, Y, or Z, as well as just give you some freedom and flexibility. But again, staying in front of people apart from Sunday mornings, even and especially during the pandemic, can be really helpful. And this is where you might have a theme for 6 weeks. It could be unstructured. It's whatever works for your community. So let me stop share. What's resonating, and what are things that you have done that I didn't bring up that would be helpful for other people to know?
Katie?
Sure. Yeah, Paula.
One of the things I do if it's a small enough group is to just give a little bit of time for everybody to go into gallery view and really look at who's there, look at each other, look, make eye contact with each other and really get a sense of being present. So just even 5 minutes is worth that at the beginning to do that.
Thank you. Another fun thing I do like to have people do, I have you all in gallery view right now, is to give a high five to the person next to them. So if everyone just gives a high five, you all look really cool and it's really fun in the video and in the replay. So you all look like you're giving high fives to each other. So. Casey.
Either for you, Katie, or anybody else, I'm curious about ways to engage or encourage people that have internet but haven't chosen to participate in Zoom. We have several in our congregation, and even though I say, oh, we really miss you, we'd love to show you how to do this, you know, I'd love some suggestions that have worked for you or for other people.
Yeah, I have some ideas. Let me open it up for other people if anyone has found, I'm sure everyone has found this to be true at to some degree, right? Because people aren't getting zoomed out. One thought I have, Casey, and tell me, this may or may not work. I think context is everything, right? But is to make a demo video for people.
That's a good idea.
Make a welcome demo video for people. You could also put this on a Facebook page or on a church website, YouTube, whatever, and that just shows like, hey, this is, you know, it's a little crazy right now, but Jesus is calling us to worship via Zoom, so this is how we're going to do it. And then show them what that looks like and feels like, and let them know they have the option of having their camera off and their sound off. No one likes to be in a hot seat unexpectedly, right? So I think that might be an unnamed fear that people have, that they're going to be called on.
Okay.
Because they're like right there. They can't slink down. They can't slink down behind their hymnal. So as much as possible, let people know what their options are that's relevant for your communities. Okay. And how y'all operate. So that's one thought. Others might come forward. A great question. And Casey and anyone, are you recording worship as your?
We're going to start, we have a new tech team that's been formed, so we're going to look at recording to put on YouTube or Facebook or something like that. I've recorded a couple things just for private, use, right. But we haven't done anything streaming yet.
Yeah.
I think would help.
Yeah, I think so, because then people can kind of watch it ahead of time and just see. And again, I think outlining the benefits of showing up, whether it's how they're going to feel or they're able to connect, or we all need each other. Again, this is going to be very community specific, but might be helpful with, I mean, obviously, I know Casey, like, without guilt tripping people or or anything like that, but the honest invitation.
Right. No, that's a great reminder.
Mm-hmm. Other kind of comments, questions around community creation? Does that feel like it would be helpful? Any of those suggestions? Does everyone know how to pre-schedule in Gmail and on Facebook? Okay, so I don't want to open up my Gmail because for obvious reasons, but when you do, you can, instead of send, where you would normally click send, there's a little arrow at the bottom of your Gmail, and it will say schedule. And you can schedule a date and time for an email to go out. In project management that I do, this is golden, because I set these and I forget about them. So you don't have to always be remembering it. I think half of the online battle is just trying to remember all the many new things to do that you don't normally have to do. If you have a Facebook page for your church, on Facebook pages, you can also pre-schedule posts. As a security feature, I do not recommend that you put on a public page what your Zoom link is for any meeting that you have, but make it easy for people to get the information. So you can always just say, send us a private message, send us an email. Once you're on our email list, you'll receive this information automatically. But it's not recommended that you put Zoom links and passwords on public social media pages at this time. Well, let's, if this feels good to everyone, let's go ahead and do the slightly more advanced information, and then we can do practicums. and talk more about pinning and recording and all of that for anyone that wants co-hosting, for anyone that wants a little practice. Does that feel right for everyone? Perfect. Okay, part of recording, I learned this the hard way. Be sure to minimize, if you're doing a screen share and you're recording the screen share, be sure to minimize the participants. Otherwise, all of their faces will cover your slides. And it's hard to edit out. Okay, so a little bit of intermediate Zoom information. Participant management. Y'all mute and unmute people ruthlessly, just ruthlessly. To do this, you'll click on the participants and then you can mute all, and then you can unmute people one at a time as needed. I'll also show you how to have them raise their hands. If you're doing, like if you have a lot of people and you're doing prayer requests, for instance, so you can call on one person after the other, and it's pretty effective. Set your expectations for participants gently and invite them to remember that they are in worship, not in their living room, even if they are in their living room. So again, this is part of creating community. And just, you know, at the beginning of a worship service or a meeting, you can pause, set the tone, say the prayer, and in that, set your expectations for how you are, you know, not that we're demanding people to behave in a certain way, but just, again, setting the tone, reminding them that we're all together in community. Pinning a participant. So we talked about this earlier. This is mostly for recording purposes. So you'll see in the replay when and you can go back and find it probably about 40 minutes in, I pinned myself. And so that means in the recording, only I will show up. Every individual participant can decide if they want to be in speaker view or in gallery view. And then the pinned participants are what show up on the recording. Do instruct people whether to how to set their Zoom accounts to either gallery view or speaker view. I neglected to do this with all of you, but you were all so smart that you did it on your own because you were commenting on it. But showing people how to do this can be really, really helpful and also help create the community dimension as well. Walk people through their options on viewing, muting on the camera, and how you want them to chat or to interact. Excuse me. For screen sharing, we're screen sharing right now. You can have a PowerPoint. This is a Keynote, PowerPoint, both about the same. For instance, you can have words to songs. You can have images. You can have a bulletin. Less is more in terms of not cramming words on a page, and a picture. There we go. Well, went too far. See, accidents happen. A picture is worth 1,000 words, which I forgot to include on this slide, but you saw it on the other ones. You can also show videos or YouTubes as well. Be prepared for a little bit of transition time. As you've seen with this, it's rarely seamless. You have to click share. You have to find the file that's already open on your computer. You know, there's a little transition time. That's no big deal. And be sure to check share computer screen sound. I know we had a question about that when you are sharing your screen, if it's a video, and I'm going to show you that in just 1 second. Here we go. All right, so see on the bottom where the little circle is, where it says share computer sound. So as soon as I click share on my Zoom, this pops up and it shows you all of the different files I had open at that time. So I could have shared my Keynote, I could have shared another Keynote, I could have shared my Google Chrome, my calendar. There's my Excel sheet with all of your names and emails on it. And then, but if I was going to share a video, I would want to click share computer sound, and then the sound will come through as well. So that's it's easy to forget where that is, but it's right when you click share computer screen.
Katy,
and then, oh yes.
Can I add something that has been a hard lesson?
Of course.
If you have headsets on though, you have to unplug your headset or the sound won't come through for the participants.
I have in my headset now. And I was able to share that whole video with you guys.
Well, I don't know, because I don't know what I'm doing then, because if I don't have, maybe because you have a separate microphone, I don't know. If I just have my headset plugged into my computer, if I don't unplug it, then the rest can't really hear the
Okay,
sound.
so it might just be trial and error with everyone's individual setup. So definitely practice before you launch full scale, full
I
scale
think
into
that
it.
was what was happening when I was trying to share a video. And,
Okay,
I had to unplug my headset, but what it
Okay.
was doing was it was playing the video through the speakers and picking it up through the mic.
oh, okay,
That's
okay, so there
why-
was, yeah, so I would
That's why
say
they were
just,
able to hear the video.
cool, so we can practice that later on for all of us and just see what works for your individual setup. Yeah, so thank you for the, we'll figure out the hack for everyone. The other thing that everyone can do is, this is a really easy settings when you, I can't really show you because it won't show up on the screen. Excuse me. But when you're in the Zoom app, before you begin a meeting and you click on your picture and you go to the settings, this will show up. And I want to show you that share screen. So we had a question about this earlier. So these are different settings. You'll just have to experiment with these to see what works well. But for instance, you could click the scale to fit shared content to a Zoom window, or the side-by-side mode, which means if this is clicked, then everyone's picture would still show up next to whatever screen that you're sharing. Silent system notifications when sharing a desktop. So if I'm getting emails or, my little calendar is buzzing, those won't come through whenever I'm sharing, screen sharing. So it is worth going through these settings. Most of them you won't really need, but it's worth going through here, through these and seeing if there's any that will apply to you. Some common frequently asked questions are, can everyone sing together? I got to tell y'all, no, they can't. It will be a nightmare. If everyone tries to turn on their speakers and sing with a piano, I've yet heard it so that it will actually work. But you can have creative music. You can have someone playing music. You can have solos. You can have YouTube videos. You can have people sing along with their sound muted and just singing to themselves. There's creative ways to do it, but actually trying to have like a hymn that sounds nice where everyone's singing together, unless it's the length of Jesus Loves Me, it's going to be really, really hard. So that just has to do with everyone's individual computer speeds. Can you eliminate miscellaneous noise? Probably not. You can minimize it with the mute all button, but people will unmute themselves, often unintentionally, and you will hear random noise. So again, you just have to be ruthless with the mute all, And that's just, just like it would be in a regular church service. I mean, there's random noise. It's not that big of a deal. Can you hold worship exactly the same as you can in person? Well, no, this does require adaptation. It will still be worship though, but you can create an environment for new and different worship. And it's a great opportunity to take advantage of, of new opportunities to try out new formats, to have the reading that you can't usually, that you haven't ever been able to have, that you've been wanting to. And you might be able to increase participation by people who are reluctant to stand in front of a congregation, but they might be willing to sit at their desk and participate in a new way. And where can you learn more? I'm going to email you these links too, so don't worry about trying to screenshot them or write them down. But there's a person named Robbie Samuels, and he has this Zoom settings video, and he does the No More Bad Zoom. And he has the Google Drive is a document that he has. It's kind of like a checklist. So I found this very helpful. And again, rather than recreate the wheel, I thought I would just give you all of that for some of your more advanced information. So he may be worth just taking a look at. So I'll get that to everyone as well. So I think it's a good time to just pause again, questions, and then let's go into our tutorial and our practicum. So yeah, let me pause again. More questions about the intermediate, some of the more intermediate.
Yeah, Katie, I have a question regarding sending out questions and voting events during a Zoom meeting, like when you have a board meeting, all in favor of having this and this done, yes or no, instead of raising the hand. Is that something you recommend, or?
If it's, check with your bylaws, all that kind of stuff, or what needs to be official or not official. But you can create a poll. This is the Region Zoom account, so I can't create a poll here. But yeah, I would recommend creating a poll to do that and then releasing the poll and letting people vote that way.
Okay.
And that can actually be a fun community building exercise too. And that can just be as simple as, I think for some meeting I had, it was around the time when Tiger King came out. So I was just polling who all watched Tiger King and, or not, you know, just something kind of fun too. So that builds
Would that be
community.
something that only the host can do, or can the
Correct.
co-host?
You need to set it up ahead of time. So I'll send you instructions on how to do that. And this is, so some of the advanced stuff you have to do not in the settings on your app, but in your browser. So I should actually be able to show you some of that. Let me see if I can get to mine easily. I can screen share it with you real quickly. Okay, so this is what it would look like. And these do take, this is where as part of your prep, you do have to think about it a little bit ahead of time. So you would go to zoom.us, you would sign in. Here I am with my account. Here's all of my recurring meetings. As you can tell, I have quite a lot. So here's the one I created for us. So I'd go to edit. I could, in here, you can do a lot more than you can do on the app. Why they make it this way is, I don't know, but they do. So I could enter in an optional description. Most of us won't really need that. Here's all the stuff that I already showed you. I could click automatically record the meeting. I could pre-assign people to a breakout room. I find this nearly to be impossible because you have to have people's email addresses and assuredness that they're going to be there. So I think that would be actually pretty challenging. But in the, where's my poll? Is it settings? Oh, somewhere in here you can create a poll. Here we go. Add polls to meeting controls. That's all done. Well, now I'm not going to be able to remember exactly where to do it. But anyway, if you come in here and play around, it's worthwhile just to see what other options there are for yourself. So I will find that and then send you a screenshot or a link of how to set a poll. It's one of those things I never remember how to do it. I always have to go to the help desk and then I find it again. And Zoom's help desk is alternately helpful. Sometimes very helpful. Sometimes it reads like instructions from a 1980 stereo. So, okay, other questions? Let me go through the chat here. Okay, so Beverly, what kind of training are you thinking about?
I'm part of the Stephen Ministry leadership group, and we're looking to start a training class for new ministers in January.
Oh, great.
So we don't know if it's going to be in person or video or Zoom or a combination. So especially if it's a combination that only certain people are comfortable meeting in the space, how do we work that with those who are out here in Zoom land?
I think that might be a good opportunity to actually do pre-records of the lessons.
Oh.
So okay. I would actually pre-record the lessons, have people watch them on their own, or you could watch them concurrently, like we did with the 10-minute video I had that I did last night for all of you. And then your discussion, then you can use Zoom for your discussion, either in large group or in breakout rooms.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we call that a reverse classroom. So the lessons are pre-recorded. People can watch either on their own or together. And that way, I like that because the pressure is kind of off for someone to have to lead on Zoom, especially when it's material as in depth as a Stephen Ministry training, where it requires a lot of being emotionally on.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dan, I know you said that you all pre-record. So how does that, you're using Zoom in other ways? Talk us through the process, Dan.
Save me from typing.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Yeah, we pre-record the service, but then we do a Zoom coffee hour at noon. So that people watch the service and then go to that. So last Sunday, a member of the church said, why aren't we inviting people to come to our coffee hour, like as part of the video broadcast? She said, you know, when we have worship on Sundays, we invite everybody to come back for coffee afterwards. And so I just had a board meeting just before this meeting, and there was some interesting conversation about that. Like, do we want to invite just anyone to come to the Zoom coffee hour? So I like what you said, don't put the Zoom link on public. So that's my first clue, is we can invite people, but then say, email us and we'll send, so we know who it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Any other advice on that?
I make it as easy as possible. So if you have a way for people to opt in to your email list, you can just have them opt in so they get every email, and then they'll automatically get the Zoom links. Because you're not a bot is not going to do that.
Right.
So that'll be an actual person.
Right. See, that's the deal, because you know, we certainly had some people on the board that said, you know, if just anybody can jump in on this, I'd rather not participate.
I think it's unlikely that you're going to get a lot of visitors for a coffee hour.
I agree.
It's too intimate.
Well, or you know, they're just thinking somebody that just wanted to cause trouble. But I like the idea is that we don't give the Zoom link out. We just make the invitation. Hey, we do have a coffee hour on Sundays. If you'd like to join, send us an email.
Or yeah, we would love to have you join us because of security. We're just, you know, we need to ensure you're a real person.
Yeah.
We're happy to give you the information and make it, send an email, or if you're on Facebook, a Facebook IM or whatever it is, you know.
Cool beans. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bet. So a few final words. Everyone here has the capability and the desire, and so that's most of it, honestly. So putting out a sincere effort, people really do appreciate it. Comes through. You're all sharing the gospel message, and you're in this unique time and space, and that is to be not underestimated at all. Imperfect is okay. Over explaining is more than okay. Which is more important, your sound or your video?
Sound.
Your sound is the most important thing, right? People can't hear, they will tune out. And yeah, create the environment in exactly the same way times 50% that you would if you were in person. And you will be able to create community and long-lasting relationships through Zoom or any other technology that you choose. And I'm always here to support, to be helpful. So it's my delight to be able to support all of you in your ministries as you're moving forward.
Good. Thank you so much, Katie, and thank all of you for being part of this this evening. If you have other ideas about hour and a half, 2 hour Zoom meetings or webinars or things you want to learn more about, just let me know and we'll do our best to make that happen. This is, for me, part of the engagement through education that we're going to be doing throughout this next year, probably, because who knows when we'll be when we're able to be face to face. But, you know, if we were face to face, we might not have had Muriel with us. We might not have had Lorenz with us. You never know. And that's the gift, as you said, Katie, of this medium. Thank you, Katie, for your willingness to share your considerable gifts with us. I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to want to have you come back and do a little more and, you know, get a sense of some specific questions we want you to answer.